Hey guys, we're going to be doing 1.3 today, which is multiplying and dividing real numbers. So let's get started. Hopefully you remember that multiplying and dividing sign numbers has a few rules. When the signs are the same, if they're both positive or both negative, your answer will always come out positive. So a 4 times 5 is 20, or negative 15 divided by negative 3 is positive 5. Whereas if you are multiplying and dividing different signs, then your answer will be negative. So here's a positive 6 times a negative 3, which is a negative 18. Or here you'll see a negative 18 divided by a positive 2 is a negative 9. Positive, negative, answer's negative. Negative, positive, answer's negative. Let's do a few examples together. So if I have negative 12 times 5, this is a negative and a positive, so my answer will be negative, and 12 times 5 is 60. In this case, we have an 8 times a negative 5/4. I do the sign first, so I have a positive times a negative, that's a negative. Now I just look at the fractions. So this 4 goes into here once and in here twice. 2 times 5 is 10, so we have negative 10. Negative 11 times negative 4, they are both the same sign. They're both negative, so your answer is going to be a positive 44. Here again, let's do the sign first. We have a positive times a negative, which is a negative. If I put this over 1 here, now 2 goes into that 1 time and into that 5 times, so 1 times 5 is 5. So my answer is negative 5. And last but not least, when we have a fraction, that bar means divide. So negative 48 divided by negative 4, that will be a positive answer because the signs are the same, and 4 into 48 is 12. Now, if I'm going to find the value of an expression, I'm going to take the value they give me for the variable and plug it into the expression to find the answer. So here we have negative 3x for x equals 2/3. When the negative 3 and the x are touching like this is the coefficient, this is the variable, this means they're being multiplied. So I'm going to plug in 2/3 where that x was. Once again, we have a negative times a positive, so my answer will be negative. I'm going to place this one over a 1 to make two fractions. These 3's cancel out, and I'm left with a 2. In this example, we have negative 6 times x, or negative 6 times 7, since it said x equals 7. Negative 6 times 7 is negative 42. So let's go through a few concepts here. Two numbers are reciprocals if their product is 1. A number and its reciprocal are called multiplicative inverses. It means the same thing. To divide a number, you can multiply by its multiplicative inverse. Dividing by a non-zero number is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of the number. So let's look at this in examples. When we are dividing, we don't divide by fractions. So we say, instead of dividing by a negative 8/15, it says right here, dividing by a non-zero number is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. We're going to take this number, and instead, we're going to multiply it by the reciprocal, which is negative 15/8. Now I'm back to what I was doing before. A negative times a negative is a positive. We can simplify here. 4 goes into this once and into here twice. 5 goes into that once and into that 3 times. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 2 is 2. You are fine leaving it as an improper fraction. You do not need to convert it to mixed numbers. Matter of fact, we often say, please don't. Now this one, I cannot find the reciprocal of until I convert this mixed number into an improper fraction. So if you remember, we take the denominator, we multiply it by the whole number. 4 times 9 is 36, and we add that 1, so we have 37 back over the original denominator of 4. So now I'm going to say negative 4, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, so I'm going to multiply, and then I'm going to flip this to 4/37. And I'll put this one over a 1. Now I have a negative times a positive, which we know lands us with a negative. I cannot simplify anything here, so I'm just going to multiply across. 4 times 4 is 16. 1 times 37 is 37. Doesn't look nice, but that's the answer. All right, last but not least, we have a division. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. I take the first one and multiply it by the reciprocal, which is negative 5 over 6. Here I can simplify. It goes into there once and into there twice. 3 goes into here once and here twice. I have a positive times a negative, so my answer will be negative since the signs are different. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, so why don't you pause right here, try these 3, and then come back and see if you got them correct. All right, hopefully you did these 3 problems. We're going to keep the first one, negative 1/2, and we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, negative 6/5. Negative times a negative is a positive. 2 goes into this once and into here 3 times. So 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 5 is 5. My answer is positive 3/5. This one I needed to convert. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So this is 8 over 3, or negative 8 over 3, I should say. So now we're going to do 8/9 times negative 3 over 8. I truly suggest that you do not convert this and flip all at the same time. Very easy to make mistakes. These 8s will cancel out. 3 goes into here 1 and into here 3 times. I have a positive times a negative. My answer will be negative. The numerator is 1 and the denominator is 3. Last but not least, we need to make that into a fraction to see the reciprocal easy. I'd have negative 3/4 times, now I'm going to have negative 1/9. 3 goes into this 3 times. I have a negative times a negative. Same signs, answer is positive. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 3 is 12. All right. Now let's start evaluating. Again, why don't you pause it, see how you do, and then we'll come back and check it. All right, so for 4D, you should have said S was equal to negative 4 divided by R. So that's divided by 20. Now, you could do negative 4 divided by 20, but I would make it a fraction, negative 4 over 20. That means divide. And now I just have to simplify my fraction. 4 goes into 4 one time, goes into 20 5 times. So my answer is negative 1/5. If you did it this way, you would have negative 4 times 1 over 20, which in the end still gives you negative 1/5. For E, you had R times T. R is 20. T is negative 88. So you had to multiply these together. A positive times a negative is a negative. Now my trick is I say, what's 2 times 88? And 2 times 8 is 16. That's 176. And then I add my 0 at the end here. Okay, so here n equals 6. N equals negative 6. I need to plug it into this expression. So I have 2/3 divided by negative 6, or negative 6 over 1. This is the same as 2/3 times negative 1/6, because I can multiply by the reciprocal. 2 goes into here 3 times. I have a positive times a negative. My answer is negative. And we have a 1/9. And for G, we're going to take this again, 2/3 divided by 8/9. And that's going to be the same as 2/3 times the reciprocal of 9/8. They're both positive. My answer is positive. 2 goes into that 4 times and that 3 times, so I'm left with 3/4. All right, so multiplying by 0, the product of any number and 0 is 0. So no matter what you multiply by, you're going to get 0. A fraction times 0 is 0. 0 times a negative number. It doesn't matter about the signs. Anything times 0 is 0. Now, 0 divided by a number, the quotient is also 0 as long as what you're dividing by is not 0. So it says any non-zero number. 0 divided by 6, 0. 0 divided by 2/3, 0. 0 divided by -8, 0. Anything that you divide 0 by is 0 as long as you're not dividing by 0. And the reason why is division by 0 is undefined. You cannot divide anything by 0. You can't have something and divide it into no groups. So we say that it is undefined. Multiplying by 0, you get 0. 0 divided by anything is 0. But when you divide by 0, it is undefined. So why don't you take a second, pause, do these, and then come back and see how you did. All right, so 5a, 0 divided by 15, you should have had 0. 0 divided by 0, though, is undefined. You cannot divide by 0. -22 divided by 0, undefined. -12.350 times 0, just 0. -8.45 times 0 is 0. And 0 divided by -8 1/6, you can convert this to whatever you want, but if you're dividing 0 by anything, you're going to get 0. All right, let's take a second, a little review, do these 6 problems, and then we'll come back and see how you did. All right, so for number 1, 35 divided by -7. Positive divided by a negative is a negative, and you get -5. 2x for x equals -6. This means you're doing 2 times -6, which is a -12. Number 3, -3 divided by 1 3/4. Well, 1 3/4, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7, that's 7/4. So this is -3 times, not 7/4, but 4/7. So that leaves me with a negative answer because they're opposite signs. 3 times 4 is 12, and 1 times 7 is 7. Improper fraction, no problems. -2 1/3 times 0 is 0. And -3/4 divided by 0, you should have had undefined. Number 6, a cyclist traveled on a straight road for 1 1/4 hours at a speed of 12 miles per hour. How many miles did the cyclist travel? Well, distance equals rate times time. So the rate they're going is 12 miles an hour, and we're going to multiply it by how long, which is 1 1/4 hour. I don't like to multiply by mixed numbers, so I'm going to change this. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5/4. So we're going to multiply 12 times 5/4. 4 goes into that 3 times. So 3 times 5 is 15. He went 15 miles. All right, that's 1.3. Hope you did well. And we can go over anything you don't know in class.